Hey guys, you're watching The Positive Chapter. I'm Mark Nixon and today's video is on improving our thinking and our relationship with our own negative thinking and self-talk. We're going to look at 5 key areas. Number 1 is just want to give you the confidence to know that you can do this, that you can improve your relationship with your own thinking and self-talk. Number 2 is really important, is to not try and stop or control negative thinking. That's not how we're going to do this. Instead, we're going to understand it and improve our relationship with it. Number 3, thinking is fantastic sometimes, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's normally not the best tool. So what I'm going to do in this video is give you some new and better tools. Number 4, I want to introduce you to something not that many people know about, which is your default mode network. So the default mode network is the brain's storytelling mind. And so I just want to introduce you to how that tells you unhelpful stories about the future and about the past. And then what we're going to do is use that technique of the brain. We're going to harness its power of storytelling and use that in our favour. So in point 5, we're going to look at using constructed planned narratives because the language that the brain uses is thinking and self-talk. And the good news here is it's totally changeable. So, hope you enjoy the video. This is my first ever YouTube video. My name's Mark Nixon. However, I'm a professional consultant and trainer in the area of occupational health and safety, working for a company called ARCO Professional Safety Services, where I've been for about 21 years now. So what I do is I work for and with some of the world's largest organizations and biggest brand names and create training courses for them to help keep their employees safe and healthy. But in 2014, something changed. I accidentally helped someone not complete suicide. And whilst that young lady believes I saved her life, she actually fundamentally changed mine and inadvertently the lives of thousands of people since then who I've been very fortunate enough to be able to train in the area of mental health and well-being. And so this is now my absolute passion. And so I train people on understanding mental ill health, but my real focus is on actually mental wellness, mental strength and mental resilience. So let's dive in. Know that you can change your relationship with unhelpful thinking and self-talk. Thinking is an amazing tool, but so is stress in genuine danger situations. So is relaxation once danger has passed, which is what nature does. So is being able to be present with other people and with our own mind and with our own thinking and self-talk. So what we really need is the right tool at the right time, and sometimes thinking really is the wrong tool, and sometimes it's quite a bad tool, particularly when it turns negative. So thinking really can turn negative. I'm speaking from experience here, where I was working away from home for quite a while. My thinking turned very negative very quickly, and I became aware of this. I called home, explained that things were not good. I travelled home the day after, and then I arranged counselling for the second time at that point. So the good news here is most suicidal crises are very short-lived. They are what we call time-limited. Now, again, because of what I do in my professional career, I was aware that my brain had moved into a negative ill state. Some people in the midst of a suicidal crisis won't actually know that. So I'm fortunate that I had that insight. A real key message here then is sometimes you really do need external help. I'm very open and honest about my journey, my life, some of my lived experience and the fact that I've been to professional help on 2 occasions. That has really helped. So the good news here is you get to benefit from my experience and the experience of millions of other people who've been to professional help. So the first point here is really a heartfelt, simple message of hope. The key characteristic of the brain is that it's fundamentally designed to change. So if your thinking has gone from being okay to not okay, there's every chance in the world it can become okay again. I'm here to help with that, and that's the purpose of this channel. Don't try and stop or control negative thinking. That's not how we're going to do this. That's not how it works. My phrase for this is, it's not your fault, it's your function. Let me explain. Why do we think negatively? We are crossing the road, a car comes around the corner really fast, we're halfway across, and we could think really positive here, which is, oh, they'll stop, or I'll just bounce off and be fine. There's a good chance you won't be fine in that scenario, and so it's far more likely you'll survive if the driver's brain assumes the worst, they're going to hit you. If your brain assumes the same thing, there's a much better chance you'll survive. Let me give you another example. So, avoiding a microphone here, I found a lump in my right breast when I was in my late teens. So I could think positive, which is, oh, I ignore it, it'll be fine, it'll go away on its own. That's not a good survival strategy. And nature has figured that out. So it's better to err on the side of caution. So our negative brain is the only reason that we're alive. And it's all thanks to our amygdala in our brain. So the amygdala is like the body's fire alarm, and it's like an overprotective parent. It really is trying to protect us. And because of that, unhelpfully, it's got this worst case scenario modus operandi that it generally jumps to first, and particularly when we're in a stressful situation, and definitely when we're in anxiety and depression. What's interesting, I find, is that the brain doesn't differentiate between a genuine threat to your survival and something that you're just labelling as bad and really unhelpful, like the Wi-Fi's gone down, the neighbours are making a noise, something like that. So let's use the analogy of going into a social situation. Now, let's look at two scenarios. We could be getting anxious about going into a social situation, so something like social anxiety disorder. Or we could be going in there with the prospect of having a laugh and making friends. Either way, we're linking some kind of response with that subject. So how does the brain actually do this? So whether something makes us feel good or bad doesn't matter. The brain uses a process called association to link those things together, and the more that happens, the more it's reinforced in a process called myelination. Just like a well-trodden path through a field, when we're thinking, saying or doing things regularly, we're using specific brain cells to help us do those things. Those brain cells are called neurons, and the path between them are called axons. And the brain recognises these well-used pathways and believes they must be important, which is really helpful for learning things like riding bikes and driving cars. So it insulates this pathway with a substance called myelin, which speeds up electrical impulses between those connected neurons, making it faster and easier for the electrical impulses to travel between them. And so it becomes faster and easier to say, think, or do whatever we're saying, thinking and doing. And if our predominant thinking style is negative, or if we're engaging in an unhelpful habit, you can probably see why that's going to be problematic. So how do we change? Now the positive here is just remember that we can, and the first step is to become conscious of what we're thinking and how we're thinking about. And then next we're going to develop a much more mild reaction for our own brain's negative thinking, and this is the essence of mindfulness. So Jon Kabat-Zinn famously popularized this term and broke it down into 4 elements called paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So it really is just paying attention, and in this case to our own thinking. So the next time you become aware of a thought, whatever that thought is, pay attention on purpose. Now, important, notice I didn't say pay attention to the thought you've just had. It's just our brain doing what's called automatic thinking. You became aware of that thought. So what we're going to start to do now then is differentiate ourselves from what the brain does most of the time. So one of my favourite phrases from a chap called Jack Cornfield, and you know you're on a winner when you've got a quote from the Dalai Lama on the back of your book praising basically what this guy does. So that's Jack Cornfield, and so this is where I got this phrase from, which is, as the mouth creates saliva, so the brain creates thought. That's just what it does. And so we know our saliva is just a secretion of the mouth, and thought is just a secretion of the brain. It's always going to do it. So we can't stop it, we can't turn it off. And when we try and resist it, we create that stress response. So again, we're starting to differentiate between just the brain doing what it does, like the mouth is creating our saliva, and so it's always going to do this thing called thinking. And so what we need to do is be very aware of how we're thinking and what we're thinking about, and that's what we're going to start looking at next. So it's a simple fact of life that our brain is always going to think. So the question is, why does it do this negatively? The brain's job is protection of the organism. Our job then is to accept this is what it actually does, and to have other strategies when you recognise that actually, is my thinking helping me here? If the answer is no, what else can we do? So we'll look at some of these, and again I'm going to refer back to this book, The Wise Heart by Jack Cornfield, because he teaches 4 principles for mindful transformation, which is RAIN. R-A-I-N. So what does RAIN break down? RAIN breaks down into recognise. So we start to recognise our own thinking, accept and allow, and I'll give you a good analogy on how to do this in just a moment. Investigate, is there anything useful here? And then if not, non-identification. That's just my brain doing what it does. First of all, we recognise that we've just had a thought. No, we haven't. Okay, so let's stop doing that. This is how we catch ourselves. You haven't just had a thought. You've just recognised the thought, more than likely, unless you really did sit down and think about it. You might be sat down, what do I want for tea? That's your thinking, but a huge amount of our own brain's thinking is not ours. It's just the brain doing what it does. It's just a momentary firing of electrochemical activity between those 2 brain cells, and you are the powerful human spirit, as I like to call people, that became mindful of it. So I'm a big advocate of start to feel good now. Feeling good induces dopamine in a positive way. It's the reward molecule, it's a success molecule. So when we start to feel good about, oh, there we go, I've just recognized the thought, then I've just differentiated it from me, start to feel good. You were the one that was aware of the thought. So now we've recognized, the next thing we're going to do is accept and allow it to be there. Just let it be there. A great analogy from Headspace's Andy Puddicombe is a very simple car analogy. Okay, so the analogy is this. A car's coming along, it's going really slow, a lot slower than walking speed. So rather than getting out of the way of it, we decide, no, I'm going to stop this thing, I'm going to resist this thing. And you can probably see where this is going. So you get on the car bonnet now, and you're pushing, and it keeps coming, and at some point you realise, actually, this is too strong for me. Again, what you could do is get out of the way of it. And so this is the analogy for our own thinking. When we actually try and resist or get stressed or stop and control our thinking, we're actually putting up resistance, and we're then creating a stress response with it. So just like in the car analogy, we need to just allow them to come along, because they're always going to. So we accept and allow thoughts after we've recognized them. And however old you are, you'll recognize that you've been around for how many years. Every single thought you've had has come and gone, just like all your feelings have and all your experiences have. Just like the cloud. That's the reason for the cloud here, is they come through the sky. They don't change the sky, they don't colour the sky, they come in and move through. And in a few minutes, they'll have gone again. Allow your thinking to come along and try and avoid having this stress reaction to it. So we've recognised, we've accepted, we've allowed. The next step is investigation. Let's investigate our own thinking. Is there anything useful here? So one of the first questions I have is stress useful here? No, I'm sat trying to write a report, or I'm laid in bed. So the question then is stress the right tool at this time? And a lot of the time when you start asking that question, the answer will be actually no. And so if the answer you get is no, then the next question is, okay, well, what is a better tool? And very often what you'll find is relaxation, nearly always. So I'm going to be making a separate video at some point. Now I don't make videos fast, I try and make them well, but just as a bit of a breakdown, as somebody that's had a relationship with anxiety and depression in the past, for relaxation, here are my kind of top tips very quickly. So throughout the day, exercise, movement, humour, social engagement, having a laugh. At bedtime, or when you wake up in the middle of the night, bedtime yoga. I'll be putting a link down in the comments below to Psyche Truth's, Eric Kvetcher's bedtime relaxation yoga, which I've done practically every single day throughout lockdown. The other thing, one of my key go-tos is breathing exercises, breath work, and then particularly something which you can do in bed in about 5 minutes or less, applied muscle relaxation, where I start with the toes and work up. You can basically stretch, you could say tense, but I actually use the word stretch as you breathe in. Hold for a couple of seconds or longer, and then as you breathe out, just let that tension go. And then the feet, they kind of press down on the bed with the calves, the thighs, the glutes, and by the time you find you're kind of working up towards the kind of upper muscles, you've pretty much gone to sleep. So that's my go-to one now for relaxation during the night. The next question I ask is my thinking in perspective here? Is it proportionate to what's actually going on? And so that's really important. So we need to get a sense of proportion. Let's get a sense of perspective. The next question is, did I think it? And 95% of the time, you'll probably find the answer to that is no. The next question I ask is it true? Is what my brain is saying here, is that actually true? And a lot of the time you'll find that when we move on to the default mode network, you'll find actually no, there's a lot of rubbish in there. It's this very kind of a shallow, limited perspective on our own self. One of the other questions is it new? Is this new information? Again, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll probably find that you're not coming up with anything new. If you are, fantastic, write it down. That's useful. But a lot of the time, it's not. So this next question, which you become an expert at when you go through counselling, is this helpful? Or is this not helpful? Or could it even be harming me? So quite often what you'll find is your own thinking is not the right tool, it's not in perspective, you didn't think it, it's not true, it's not even new, so it's definitely not helpful. In investigation then, what we do need to look for is when our thinking is actually trying to get us to do something we've probably been putting off. So one of the key things here then is to stop avoiding it, because the only thing a problem will respond to is action, a solution. So what's the solution? What do we need to do? So break that down. What's the goal? What do I want here? Get a plan. Get a plan of action. What are you going to do first? When are you going to do it? Chunk it down. What are the key steps? Take action on one step at a time. Feel good about achieving those micro steps, as we call them, and then that creates dopamine, which is the reward molecule, the success molecule, and it's more likely we're going to keep that ball rolling. So when the brain starts to tell us a rubbish story again, when you can actually say, yeah, I have a plan for that brain, and we can just calm that part of the brain down. So we've recognised, we've accepted and allowed, we've investigated our thinking. Is there anything useful here? And so this last stage is non-identification. Non-identification, when the brain isn't being useful, okay? So one of the things I say is very simple. I actually say, thanks brain, because I know it's actually trying to protect me. So thanks brain, I know you're trying to protect me, but actually this doesn't matter. It's not something I can actually do, or again, if it's something that you can do, I have a plan for that. So thanks brain, it's just a thought, it doesn't matter. It's not important. And so start identifying with you're the one that became aware of it. It's not you. I'm going to invite you to really dwell on something here deeply and allow it to sink in, because this is the truth. Thoughts and feelings and experiences are what we call TLC, temporary, local, changeable, just like the weather. The deepest part of you, whatever you want to call that deepest part of you, soul, spirit, consciousness, whatever, the thing that animates this body, the truest essence of you, witnesses all these things and remains unchanged. So the real you is the person, the thing that's still going to be here once this is gone. And Muji, again, a massive inspiration in my life, just says this awesomely, like he does, and extremely simply, which is, it makes no difference to this. And by this he's talking about that truest essence of who you really are, the thing that's going to be around once this thought has actually gone away. Our negative thinking mind is just a tool for our survival, but RAIN, R-A-I-N, recognize, accept, allow, investigate, non-identification, is a tool that again is well explained in this book, so I definitely recommend this book. But it's just a tool you can use because it's so simple, and it really does help you develop this much more mild reaction to your own brain's negative thinking. Number 4, I want to talk about the default mode network, because not a huge amount of people have heard of this, but it's the thing that's responsible for a lot of worry and rumination. Our brain does love a good story, it really does. The problem is, because of this network called the default mode network, when we're what's called task neutral, not doing anything, not paying attention to anything, the brain decides to do something else instead, which is a better survival mechanism than sitting there doing nothing, which is to start thinking. We know this as daydreaming. Yes, exactly. And this is what's responsible, the default mode network. So the brain's figured out that once there's nothing immediately pressing in your environment, otherwise that's where your attention would be, such as when you're really engaged in a hobby or doing some kind of craft work or playing with the kids or watching a really good movie, they really engage you and you're not thinking about anything else. But the minute your attention isn't really on much, the brain switches on thinking. So it starts thinking about what could go wrong and what went wrong last time, because 20,000 years ago that was useful. And we've still got the same brain. So the brain hasn't evolved in 20,000 years. It's the same brain. So the default mode is the storytelling mind. It's our inner narrator, self-referential, negative, repetitive thinking, and it really ramps up during stress and massively with regards to anxiety and depression, where it becomes much more active and much more negative. The other thing it does, as an aside from transporting us into the future and the past, is it starts guessing really badly at what other people are thinking and saying about us, what's called theory of mind. Now, here's the good news, here's the positive chapter in this, okay? You can disconnect it. So the next time you're really engaged in something, no matter what that is, notice that your mind's not wandering off, because this is really rooting you in the present moment. So playing with kids, engaging in conversation, breath work, exercise, nature, hobbies, a good movie, reading. So nature's one of mine. As a photographer, I discovered something, which is nature hasn't got a clue what the future is or the past. They're human mental constructs. In nature, it's always now. Here's the truth. No one has ever experienced the future except as a thought. No one's ever experienced the past except as a thought, a memory. And so those two places don't exist, and you can only experience them as thinking. They are just stories because the future hasn't happened and the past is gone, long gone. It's not existing anymore except in a brain somewhere. So these are just stories. They're mental movies. So why listen to a bad story, a Greek tragedy? Why watch a bad movie? Because you have a choice. So what we need to do is put together to construct a better, more true, more powerful, more enabling personal message of who we are and what we're capable of. So let's talk constructed, planned narratives. Now, most people have not heard them called this. However, Tony Robbins, you can't talk robust self-talk without talking about David Goggins, so the elite military, top sports coaches, professionals in most areas do this anyway. But I just latched onto this term because I just find it a useful term when I heard about the phrase or read about the phrase in a really good book on depression called Overcoming Depression by Paul Gilbert, who has popularized this self-compassionate approach to depression. So he countered what's called deceptive brain messages. So in depression and anxiety, the brain is basically telling us a load of rubbish, and we've talked about this now, which is just brain information. It's the default mode network kicking in, and so hopefully, we've got a better tool on how to address that. And so one of the things he utilized was something called constructed planned narratives. So the clues in the title, these are things that we construct, we build on purpose. They're planned, so we do this in advance, and it's a story. So just like the future hasn't happened yet, it's just a brain story. Just like the past did happen, but it's not happening anywhere on earth anymore, it's just a brain story once again. We're telling ourselves a better story. And so again, they're exemplified by that guy. I'd never heard of this chap a year ago. We're in 2021 now, and I'd never heard of him. And he's become an overnight legend for me just because of his story, what he came from, the fact that it, in his own words, should be a statistic. Instead, he's become the world's toughest man. So that's something to aspire to. So, constructed planned narratives. So they can be as short or as long as you like. So here are some of the milder ones first of all, and then I'll get on to some of the more Goggin-esque constructed planned narratives in just a moment. So I'm a mountain biker, and so when I'm on a real tough ascent, when I'm going up a big hill, and we had the Tour de Yorkshire, and spray painted onto the floor was shut up legs, it's only pain. And so one of the phrases, I love that phrase, shut up legs, it's only pain, is keep it going, I'm doing well. Will, whatever you're going through, will this be the thing that finishes me off? Hell no, hell no. Another, I've handled everything in my life so far. I'll handle this too. I've got this far, I'm not giving up now. Another then, I might not be able to do this or have that, but I still have these things and I can still do these things. So again, we're sifting out what we can do, we're extracting the positives from our situation. I'm human and I don't have to be perfect all the time. And if I need help, I can reach out and get help, which I have done on 2 occasions, again by going to professional help. So allow me to indulge myself here in some very Goggin-esque language. So I've taken out the expletives, just so this is kind of child friendly. So David talks about his 40% rule, which is when you start hitting the pain, you've still got another 60% left in the tank. And I've used that on so many occasions. You have not given it your all, not even close. You have all the tools to finish this right here, right now. Ignore pain like it's your damn job. So when I'm on a real toughie, when I'm doing 20-30 miles and the legs start screaming, ignore pain like it's your damn job. You have plenty left in the tank to get this done. Stress is part of the deal. So the elite military have just figured out how to use stress as energy. So stress is part of the deal. Refuse to give in, refuse to give up. Are you going to quit now and guarantee failure? Hell no. Is this going to be the obstacle that stops you? Hell no. Get through this and you'll be better, tougher, harder, stronger. Feeling defeated, feeling uncomfortable, good. Go harder. That's where growth is. Pain's growth. And I can't talk about these things without mentioning Tony Robbins, which is one of my favourites. Are you going to have results or an excuse? And that is a real kicker for me. That's the one, when that comes in there, that kind of makes me go, do you know what? Yeah, press on. So I've been to get my my Wizard's book. So it's just a real leather-bound book with handmade paper in it, which I just love. So this was one of it's the first one I ever kind of put together, aside from the shorter ones, which can be really good and punchy when you need them. But this was one where I, again, constructed, planned it, and it's a story of I believe, kind of who we are. I always have, always can, and always will be able to learn, change, overcome, move out of my comfort zone, conquer and grow. In fact, let's switch to we, because I believe this is who we are. We always have, we always can, we'll always be able to learn, change, overcome, move out of our comfort zone, conquer and grow. Challenge and difficulty make us strong. Adversity makes us smarter and more prepared. Setbacks make us step up and grow and make us raise our standards. That little snippet there taken from Tony Robbins. I don't think we're strong. I know we're strong. Negative thoughts are no match for the powerful witnessing presence that sees their arising and their passing. We, the true us, are natural forces born of our star. Our atoms that make us up were kicked out of the sun. Our brothers and sisters are the myriad pure spirits alongside us in this web of energy called the universe. We're the evolution of all the life forms that came before us as our ancestors. Their wisdom and presence exists in our soul. That, for me, we are the pinnacle of evolution. If we weren't, we wouldn't be here. We are natural forces for good and shining lights in the world. So all the words in my word heart here, the kind of bright green ones, we're strong, we're resilient, we're limitless, we're unique, we're courageous, we're sisters and brothers, irrespective of race, colour, creed, gender, sexuality. It doesn't matter. We're brothers and sisters on this planet. That's who you are, that's who I am, that's who we are, I believe. And again, so let's just start to give ourselves the credit for who we really are and what we're capable of. And so a constructed, planned narrative then is a powerful, empowering story of who we genuinely are and the things we're capable of. So just to summarize this video then, again, I really want you to latch on to that fact that you can change your relationship with your own thinking and self-talk, and it's not by trying to stop it, but it's having this much more mild reaction to it, as Jack Cornfield talks about in Rain, to recognize thinking and self-talk, to allow it to be there, to investigate it in some ways, or anything useful here, but a lot of the time, no. Thanks, brain, it's just a thought. It doesn't matter. It's not important unless it is, and then you can write that down. But a lot of the time it's non-identification. And then have a constructed, planned narrative, or many of them, that you can fall back on when the going gets tough. Making this video has been a lifetime's ambition for me. I hope you found it useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know down there in the likes and in the comments. Click to subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when I make the next one. I'm not going to be making videos fast. I'll be trying to make them well. Let me know if there's any topic that you think I might be able to cover, and I'll try and do that. Life, there is no dress rehearsal. This is it. So why not make this the positive chapter in your life? Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.